Today's episode is brought to you by the Positively Productive Toolkit, a collection of workbooks that guide you through self-discovery and self-awareness. These self-guided workbooks, which include links to assessments, can be completed in minutes. Request this free resource and others at the positivelyproductive.com/resources page. Simple practices are the most powerful. When something is accessible in everyday moments, when you don't need to have perfect conditions or extra time or a dramatic mindset shift, repetition becomes much more realistic. And repetition is what creates true and lasting change. You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zaratny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and if you've ever felt like you should be treating yourself better, but weren't sure where to begin or what that would realistically look like, this episode is for you. Last week in episode 301, we talked about self-compassion, what it actually is, why it matters, and how it supports our nervous system and resilience. The key takeaway was this. Self-compassion isn't just a feel-good idea, it's a learnable skill that supports your nervous system, your mental health, and your ability to keep going when life is hard. We also explored the idea that self-compassion isn't weakness, indulgence, or letting yourself off the hook. It's a way of relating to yourself that reduces shame, lowers stress, and creates more sustainable energy. At its core, self-compassion has three key components. Self-kindness, responding to yourself with understanding rather than criticism. Common humanity, remembering that struggle is part of being human, not a personal failure. And mindfulness, noticing what you're experiencing without exaggerating or suppressing it. Those three elements work together. They change how your brain and nervous system respond to difficulty. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, I do recommend going back to it. But the overview I just shared is enough for you to stay right here, and you can always return to that episode when it's convenient. Today, we're moving from understanding self-compassion to practicing it. Because self-compassion is not something you master once and then magically you maintain it forever. It's something you return to, especially in the moments when you're struggling, overwhelmed, frustrated, and just not feeling like yourself, not feeling like your best self. This isn't about becoming endlessly positive or perfectly calm. There's no toxic positivity here. What we're talking about is changing how you relate to yourself in the negativity and chaos. Today, I'm walking you through 5 simple ways you can practice self-compassion in real life. Think of it as entry points. You don't need to use all of them. You don't need to remember all of them. And experimenting with just one can begin to shift your experience. The first way is to notice your internal monologue. Ask yourself, how am I talking to myself right now? It's that inner mean girl that we're talking about, right? So one of the most immediate ways to practice self-compassion is through your internal language. Many of us have an inner voice that is surprisingly harsh, impatient, critical, and especially so when we're stressed. The tricky part is that this voice often sounds normal because we've heard it for so long and because it reflects how many of us were taught to speak to ourselves, and maybe how we speak to each other, or we've heard others say they speak to themselves. Somehow we've made it okay. But it's not. The brain does not treat self-criticism as harmless commentary. It treats it as truth and a threat. If you repeat negative judgments often enough, they begin to feel like accurate descriptions of who you are rather than passing reactions in a difficult moment. Over time, that internal dialogue can quietly shape your identity, not just how you feel, but what you believe you are, what you believe is possible for you. At the same time, sharp and judgmental self talk can activate your nervous system. Your body responds as though something's wrong or unsafe. And that stress response comes with narrow thinking and a physiological shift that makes you uncomfortable. Your innovation decreases, your flexibility decreases. We've talked about this on the podcast. When you have a stress response, your focus isn't as good. So you lose a lot when you put yourself unintentionally into stress response. That's exactly the opposite of what you need when you're already struggling. So a gentle shift in language can create a very different internal environment. So it's not forced positivity. This is not like affirmations and this inaccessible kind of thing. It's just less hostility. So instead of, I'm terrible at this shouldn't be so hard, what's wrong with me? You might try something like, okay, this is hard right now. I'm still learning. Okay, it makes sense that I feel this way. Think about how you would talk to a friend and try doing that with yourself. When I work with clients, I will sometimes interrupt them when they are using the more negative language, especially when they express it out loud or they tell me what's happening. And I'll say, excuse me, please don't talk to my client like that. We'd laugh, but the point was made. How you speak to yourself matters. The second way to practice self-compassion is to actually ask yourself what you need. Say the words, what do I need right now? Self-compassion is deeply connected to responsiveness. Rather than pushing through discomfort automatically, this practice invites you to pause and check in with your actual needs, much like you would do with a friend or loved one, asking how they're doing and whether they need anything. You have a visitor? That's what you do. Hi, how are you doing? Do you need anything? What can I offer you? You're actively extending that same awareness and courtesy to yourself. This engages your thinking brain in a supportive way instead of a critical one. And as a bonus, it gently reinforces your sense of value, reminding you that it isn't defined solely by your performance or your achievements. Often what we need is surprisingly simple, yet surprisingly easy to ignore. So we need to catch it. Fatigue, hunger, overstimulation, emotional overload. These states profoundly influence how we feel and function, yet we frequently interpret that struggle that we're feeling as a personal thing, like it's our issue that we need to get over, rather than a signal that we need attention. And the fix can be so easy. Needs-based self-compassion starts with a simple question: what do I need? And often ends with answers like, I need a short break. I need to get up and walk around and get some fresh air. I need clarity before continuing. I need rest, not pressure. I need reassurance, not self-criticism. I need help. Or sometimes I need a snack, a nap, and for people to leave me alone. Okay, that one might have been my extra special edition, and it might have been oddly specific, but I suspect it's familiar. Need is not the same as indulgence. When a child needs rest, when a child needs food, that's a need. We're not indulging them. We're not spoiling them. Same goes for you. The third way to practice self-compassion is to listen to your body and ask the question, what is my body telling me that my brain isn't, that it's not noticing? While the previous practice starts in the mind, it's more of the dialogue, kind of like talking to yourself kindly and asking yourself questions that you want to answer. This one starts in the body, so it's a slightly different take on it. And this gives you options depending upon which way you want to come at meeting your needs. See, your body often detects stress, overload, and depletion before you may consciously be able to spot it and name it. Things like tight shoulders and shallow breathing, a feeling of heaviness or restlessness, or even like a weird gut feeling. They're not random, they're information. When stress increases, the thinking brain can become noisy or foggy. We talked about how, your focus narrows and you struggle to focus when you're in stress response. So maybe your body can tell you what you need to know, the fact that you're in a stress response. Your body continues communicating clearly through sensation. So if you pause and pay attention, your body may tell you plenty. You might notice areas of tension where muscles feel contracted or tight, a sense of heaviness or fatigue, realizing that you're holding your breath, you're feeling jittery, you're experiencing some kind of pain. From there, small physical gestures of support can help regulate your system. Breathing deeply, slowing the exhale, taking a little bit longer to exhale, softening your postures. We can even do that right now. Take your shoulders, bring them up to your ears, and then let them go down as you exhale. And taking your tongue that's often at the roof of your mouth and relaxing that. Maybe adding warmth, making sure you're not cold. Allowing rest or gentle movement or gentle stretching. Okay, so those are all solutions to what's going on, but really this practice begins with the awareness. By acknowledging what's happening in your body, you become more skilled at recognizing early signals of stress or depletion. Over time, this makes it easier to respond sooner, explore underlying causes, and often find relief more quickly. This is not only a way to be gentler with ourselves, but all of these ways to practice self-compassion can also create an efficiency in our lives as well. The fourth way to practice self-compassion is to remember you're not alone and ask the question, who or what reminds me that I'm not the only one that feels this way? Struggle has a way of becoming deeply personal. When you don't meet your goals, when you find something difficult, you think, it's got to be just me. When things feel hard, the mind easily drifts into narratives of isolation. Everyone else is coping better. Everyone else has it figured out. I'm behind. I'm failing. I'm the one with the issues. Why can't I get it right? Right? And then it brings us into that inner monologue that could be so mean. Self-compassion includes widening the lens. It's one of the rare times comparison can actually work in your favor. Difficulty isn't an individual flaw or failing. It's part of the shared human experience. We all go through it. For some people, this recognition comes through conversation. For others, especially introverts, it may come through quieter, more personalized, and intimate forms of connection. That's why reading a book can be so beneficial, or listening to a podcast. Okay, that was a shameless plug, but I swear it's a good way to realize that you're not alone. A shared story that is posted somewhere in blogs and like community groups and forums and things. All of these things where we can resonate with others and say, oh, I'm going through this and you're going through it too. And it's not comparison of achievement, but recognition of common lived experience. And that simple realization, oh, it's not just me, can be profoundly regulating. The fifth way that you can practice self-compassion is to offer yourself permission. Asking yourself, what can I allow myself right now? And what I mean by that is much of our internal tension comes from rigid expectations and constant self-demands. Self-compassion can be practiced not necessarily in something that you add, but something that you release. Allowing yourself to let go. We shouldn't need permission for a lot of the things that we do. But man, we have these stories and these rules that are built by society and our family and ourselves that we need to step back from. So giving ourselves permission to do that can be so key. Permission statements interrupt those pressure cycles and create psychological flexibility. Helps you breathe easier, get innovative, and start again. So phrases like, I'm allowed to do this imperfectly. I'm allowed to rest. I'm allowed to change my approach. I'm allowed to change my mind. I'm allowed to have limits. I'm allowed to stop. Permission is not resignation. It's not quitting. which is often the fear that keeps us trapped in pressure patterns that aren't healthy or sustainable. Permission is a realistic approach, a response grounded in what we actually need in the moment. And it can be in that season of life, but it can also be in that specific moment because life changes so fast. And it's essential for sustainable productivity. As we close this episode, consider how intentionally simple these practices are. And that's because simple practices are the most powerful. When something is accessible in everyday moments, when you don't need to have perfect conditions or extra time or a dramatic mindset shift, repetition becomes much more realistic. And repetition is what creates true and lasting change. Rather than trying to apply all of these at once, I encourage you to choose one single practice to experiment with this week. Is it the kinder words to yourself? Is it checking in with your body? Which one jumps out at you and feels just more doable? Pick that one. One question, one shift in awareness, one small adjustment in how you respond to yourself. Try it for a few days or a week if you're able, and notice what changes. Because self-compassion isn't built through grand gestures, it's built through small moments of noticing, responding, and recalibrating. And over time, those moments begin to reshape not only your habits, but your internal beliefs about yourself. It's a true win-win. If you'd like additional support for building sustainable practices and habits, you can explore the Habits playlist on the podcast page of the website, where we dive deeper into how change actually works in real life. That's at positivelyproductive.com/podcast. So there's a habits playlist and a ton of others if there are other topics of interest to you. For now, let's start with the practice of self-compassion. Simply start where you are, try one practice, and see what unfolds. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. I hope this episode inspired you, and I encourage you to think about one action you can take based on today's topic. Then share it with me so I can cheer you on. Go to positivelyproductive.com to connect with me, read blog posts, and access links from each episode and download resources.